Chad Hasty Show, News Talk 95.1 FM, 790 AM KFYO. How about we go to the phones out to Washington, D.C. Congressman Jody Arrington joining us here on the program. Congressman, how are you today?
God bless West Texas. I'm doing well, and the swamp is still swampy. But, if this president and Republicans have anything to do with it and get the House back and fend off socialism, we'll make America great for our children. But it's a battle every day. It's good to be with you, though.
Well, glad to have you on the program. It's been a quiet week up in Washington. Nothing really going on up there. Let me ask you this: there have been important votes this week. You had a resolution, I guess it was yesterday or day before yesterday, to condemn the president of the United States. That was put forward by the Democrats, Nancy Pelosi included, and Nancy Pelosi, in my opinion, broke decorum there on the House floor. Yesterday, there was a vote to impeach the president, and that got tossed aside. What is your thought process on all of this right now, and what's happening in D.C. With what basically can be considered just a circus?
It's embarrassing that in the greatest country in the world, that the United States House of Representatives and the Democrats under the Nancy Pelosi leadership is acting so absurdly. They are obsessed, as you know and your listeners know, with hatred for the president, and they oppose the traditional American values that we believe so deeply in, and want to drive us off the cliff of socialism. And there's just no end to the political gamesmanship and political theater that they conduct. Some days I feel like I took a wrong turn and ended at the Ford Theater instead of the U.S. House of Representatives chamber. And that is, it's not just par for the course, because, the silliness is part of the dysfunction of the swamp, but I think it's more than silly. I think it's dangerous. I think it's a dangerous precedent to harass a president like this, just like I think what they did to Brett Kavanaugh on the Senate side was dangerous. And it does a disservice to every American and to our constitutional republic and the governing thereof. So I try to stay focused on the people's business instead of this circus, as you refer to it, which it is. And I feel bad for my country, and it breaks my heart that this is the dynamic that we have right now, and this is where we are as a nation historically. But at the same time, I think the voters are going to punish the Democrats for not conducting the people's business and for acting so unhinged, whether it's the president, whether it's the socialist policies, open borders, calling what's happening at the border with the detained illegal immigrants as the Nazi concentration camps, for heaven's sake. Yeah. So you try to focus on the things that matter, and I try to stay out of the drama, DC drama.
Well, Congressman, from where you stand, and when you look at your colleagues on the left, who's running the show? Is it Speaker Pelosi, or is it the so-called squad? Who's running the Democrat side over there?
Well, from a purely political commentary perspective, neither. She's got one foot, Pelosi does, in she's very experienced, very shrewd politician, and she knows that a lot of these antics and political extremist strategies are going to hurt her party's chances in the 2020. But at the same time, she's got this radical, extremist, progressive left part of the wing of her party that has great influence and make it very difficult for her, to say the least. So she's trying to straddle both, which is, to me, the worst way to lead her party. And And so she ends up with the dysfunction of them devouring themselves and even having them turn on each other, and not just, we often see the race card and the identity politics being projected at Republicans. And the other day, as you know, they were voicing those same accusations toward their leader, Nancy Pelosi. So
Right.
It's very dysfunctional. It's bad for our country. It's good for the prospects of Republicans in the 2020 election.
Congressman, let me ask you this: can you hold on for a second and final segment, and then when we come back, we'll talk about some votes, including the controversial vote, and then some other votes that may be moving forward, and then rural health care. We'll talk about that as well with Congressman Jody Arrington when we come back and wrap up the show here on the Chad Hasty Show, KFYO. All right, Chad Hasty Show, News Talk, KFYO. Final segment of the day. We continue our conversation with Congressman Jody Arrington on the program. Congressman, let's get to a vote that you actually made last week. And Senator Rand Paul yesterday got a lot of blowback for his vote, or his, I guess some people are calling it a block, of the 9/11 Victims Compensation Fund. It was the reauthorization of the Victims Compensation Fund. You voted against this on Friday, and you've received a little bit of blowback on social media. Tell folks your reasoning behind your no vote.
You bet. Look, 9/11, horrific day for every American, but especially for those who were there at ground zero affected by this, and still today are. These are first responders and our fellow citizens that were exposed to things that have made them sick. Some have gotten cancer. There are all kinds of lasting negative impacts from that terrible day of September 11th, and nobody alive and old enough will ever forget it. I support providing assistance to folks who have suffered undue economic harm as a result of 9/11. What I don't support, no matter how righteous the mission or the program, is a blank check and free rein for any government program. And that's what the Democrats did in the House bill by saying, we're going to extend this program for 70 years to the year 2090. What that means, Chad, is we won't have any oversight. We won't be able to identify ways to make the program run better, to prevent fraud, waste, and abuse. And I promise you, with that much money, I mean, people are getting paid millions of dollars, individuals. And I'm not saying they don't deserve it, but I'm not interested in abdicating my oversight responsibility and my stewardship and fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers. We can, we can honor the 9/11 victims and the taxpayers at the same time. They aren't mutually exclusive, but to the Democrats, they just put a blank check out there. I talked to a lot of Republicans, and they hated that vote because of the fiscal irresponsibility. They wanted to do it on the mission of the program, but they were worried that the political blowback would be too much. I didn't come up here to Washington to just make a bunch of popular votes. I came up here to do what I thought was right. And I've talked to a lot of firefighters back home, and they support me, and they understand it, and they're, they would have done, I know that most of them would have done the same thing. Let's get it right in the Senate, and then let's pass it. Let's extend the program, not for 70 years, but for 5 years, like we've been doing it, or 10 years. I'm open. I don't need it to be perfect, but it was written disastrously, and we're $22 trillion in debt. Our country is bankrupt. And there aren't any more easy choices anymore. Those easy choices are gone. If we're going to save this country for our children and grandchildren, then we got to start making unpopular decisions and stand on it and explain it. And this is one of many that I'm sure I'm going to be taking while as long as the good folks of West Texas keep me here.
Have you reached out to anyone in the Senate to talk about this?
You bet I have. In fact, I got every member that voted against it for the same reasons. We sent a letter, and we can send it to you so you can post it. And we articulated the concerns we had. We said we support the program, but we can't give the keys of oversight away. And we sent that to McConnell. to the respective chairman of the committee, and they got to get it right, because the House is controlled by Democrats, and we got a Democrat bill that was the right thing, but done the wrong way. Everything they do, it seems, is a blank check. It's either government control or a blank check. And we can't do that to our kids and grandkids. It's the easy path, but it's not the right path. We can serve the 9/11 victims and our children and the taxpayers, and that's what I aim to do while I'm here.
Visiting with Congressman Jody Arrington. Congressman, talk to us a little bit about an issue that probably has not been in the headlines with everything else going on, but that's rural health care, something that you've been taking a look at.
Well, I have a big heart for rural America. It's my district, but I grew up in Plainview, and agriculture and energy production and a sustainable small town USA go hand in hand. The biggest challenge right now on the critical infrastructure side for rural America is access to basic care. And the next generation of farmer and rancher and energy producer, they won't stick around if they don't feel like their family will be taken care of from a healthcare perspective. And we've had two hospitals in our district close, the recent one in Hamlin, and we've got a real crisis on our hands. I was named co-chair of a task force. Ways and Means is the committee of jurisdiction over rural health care, and there's several things that we can do. I won't get into the details unless you ask, but there are lots of ways we can provide a more sustainable path so they can make sure that our families out in rural America are taken care of.
Yeah, well, let's get into the details on that next time that we have a little bit more time to get into that. I want to talk about another amendment that you have put forward, and that is dealing with ending tax breaks for illegal immigrants.
Yeah, so Ways and Means is the committee of jurisdiction on taxes. The Democrats passed a very Democrat tax bill. It expanded a refundable tax credit for children and dependent care, which basically means refundable tax credit means that if your tax liability, if you don't make a certain amount of money, you get cash from the government. And my amendment said if this Democrat bill, God forbid, were to pass, we need to make sure that monies, tax credits, and all kinds of tax breaks, in this case the refundable tax credit for child and dependent care, does not accrue to the benefit of people who are here illegally. So anyone here unlawfully should not get that tax break or any tax break. I got the blowback that you can only imagine and probably fully expect if you watch the news, and that was that I was racist, I was anti-immigrant, I was trying to steal from the mouths of immigrant children their morsels of food. It was embarrassing, but it was par for the course for how they respond to this. But it's the right thing to do, and we cannot talk in one breath about securing the border and this humanitarian crisis that has come as a result of not having secured the border, and at the same time allow for services and benefits and magnets to bring people over here illegally, and that's what I'm trying to stop.
Congressman, appreciate your time. I hear you have to get going. Nancy Pelosi's probably mad at you about something you said on the air. So appreciate your time that you were able to give us today, and let's catch up in the future.
Hey, Chad, let me tell you, I'm about to vote for West Texas and West Texas values. I'm about to vote against government control of our economy, raising the minimum wage or mandating health care or socialism like banning cows and airplanes. I mean, the reason our economy is red hot is because we put more freedom back in the marketplace. Now we've got 1 million more jobs than we actually have jobs available. And that kind of competition and that kind of stimulus coming from free market policies, that's what has grown wages and family income, not a government mandate. So I'm going to go vote against this minimum wage law.
All right, Congressman, thank you very much. Buddy. We'll let you go before they start ringing your buzzer. Have a good one, Congressman. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
That's Congressman Jody Arrington here on the Chad Hasty Show, 770-5790-18.